Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to dive in. This time we're tackling a genre that's got everyone talking, BL dramas.
And you're not kidding about diving in. We got a list from a listener who's ready to explore the dark side of these stories.
For sure. Lots to unpack there. But before we go full-on dark mode, let's make sure we're all on the same page. When we say dark BL dramas, what are we talking about? What makes a BL drama dark anyway?
That's a good question because dark can mean different things to different people, right? But
Yeah.
generally, I think in BL dramas, we're talking about themes that go beyond, those typical love triangles or misunderstandings. We're getting into like unhealthy relationships, power imbalances, maybe even some criminal stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah, things are getting interesting. I'm already thinking about a couple titles from the listeners list, like Dead Friend Forever, A Secluded Cabin in the Woods. Gives me chills just thinking about it. And then there's Playboy, a missing person case. Definitely sounds dark and twisty.
You got it. And those are perfect examples of how these darker BL dramas use those thriller elements, to create suspense. That isolated setting, like in Dead Friend Forever, instantly makes you feel uneasy, even before anything happens. And then with Playboy, that mystery element pulls you in. You want to figure out what happened just as much as the characters do.
Right. And it's not always about, like, outright horror or crime either. Sometimes the darkness comes from the characters themselves. They might be flawed or stuck in toxic relationships, like in My Personal Weatherman, where the story really dives into this romance with this huge financial imbalance between the characters. Makes you think, is it really love? Or is it something else?
Yeah. My Personal Weatherman definitely makes you confront those questions about love, dependency. It's not always clear cut. And those characters, they're complex. You're not always sure what their motivations are. It makes you question things.
Makes you wonder who the good guy really is, right? And isn't that part of why we're drawn to these darker stories? It's like this peek behind the curtain. We get to explore those raw, maybe even unsettling parts of relationships, of ourselves. It's not just a BL drama thing either. Dark themes pop up everywhere. So why do you think we're drawn to these stories? What's the psychology behind it?
Well, there are a few different theories, and they often kind of intertwine. One is catharsis. Just think about it. When we watch fictional characters go through these really intense, disturbing even situations, it can be a way for us to process our own emotions, but safely.
Right, it's like a safe space to explore those darker emotions, those what ifs.
Exactly. We get to experience the thrill without the actual danger. But it goes deeper than that,
You're sure.
right? It's not just about safe thrills. There's something about dark stories that makes us confront, I don't know, the forbidden. Definitely. Darker stories often deal with things that are taboo, things we don't usually talk about openly. And that makes them even more appealing, right? It's like we can explore these forbidden areas through fiction. And let's be real, sometimes we just need an escape.
100%. Even if that escape takes us to some pretty intense places, like Call It What You Want. We get a look into this world, the entertainment industry, all the behind-the-scenes stuff,
Yeah.
the drama, the secrets.
Oh, for sure. It's like we get a backstage pass to a world that's usually hidden. We get to see what's beneath the surface.
Cool.
And speaking of what lies beneath, I think one of the things that really draws us to these darker BL dramas is the characters. Because they often have to make difficult choices in these morally ambiguous situations. It makes them feel so much more real.
Yeah, totally. It's like those flaws, those questionable choices, make them human. Like in Big Dragon, talk about a morally ambiguous character. He gets caught up in this whole blackmail scheme, and you see how far jealousy can push someone. But you still kind of root for him, even when he's doing things you know aren't exactly right.
Absolutely. It's that complexity that makes them so interesting. You were saying earlier how dark themes pop up everywhere. And it's true. This listener's list has dramas from all over the world. Thailand, Japan, Korea, even Vietnam and Taiwan. It's like this love for dark BL dramas. It crosses borders.
It really does. And what I find fascinating is how each country brings its own flavor, its own cultural influences to these stories. Even though the core elements of what makes a BL drama dark might be universal, the way those themes are explored can be really different.
Absolutely. Like you think about Thai BL dramas, they're often known for being very upfront, very direct, especially with social issues. They tackle those controversial topics head on, which can be really powerful.
Right. And Fallen Rook is a great example of that. It explores those power dynamics in a really intense way, especially within the context of a college setting. You see these issues of consent, social hierarchy, all playing out in this very specific environment.
Exactly. And that's what I love about Thai BL. They're not afraid to push boundaries and start conversations. Then you have Japanese BL dramas, and they often have this more introspective, emotionally driven feel.
Yes. They really get inside the characters' heads, exploring those internal struggles in such a subtle but impactful way. My Personal Weatherman does a fantastic job of that.
For sure. It explores the power imbalance in that relationship, but it does it with this quiet intensity. And that's something you see a lot in Japanese BL, this exploration of unspoken emotions, the complexities of connection. It's less about big dramatic moments and more about those smaller, quieter moments that speak volumes.
It's like they're whispering secrets to the audience, letting us in on these characters' deepest thoughts and feelings. And then there's the rise of Korean BL dramas, which often bring a really interesting blend of romance, mystery, and social commentary to the table.
Right, like in Color Rush, it uses this really unique concept, this idea of neurological blindness to color, and turns it into this metaphor for finding your soulmate. But then it also deals with these heavier themes of prejudice, social acceptance. It's like they take this fantastical element and ground it in reality.
I love that. They use these extraordinary situations to explore ordinary human experiences. Okay, so we've talked about what makes a BL drama dark and why these stories resonate with us, but I know there are a few titles on this listener's list you're dying to talk about. So let's jump into some recommendations. Dead Friend Forever. That one immediately grabbed my attention. I mean, horror and BL. Plus, you've got that isolated cabin setting. Recipe for chills.
You're right to be intrigued. Dead Friend Forever really leans into those classic horror tropes, but it blends them so well with this compelling BL love story in that cabin. It becomes like another character, it creates this atmosphere of suspense, like something's always lurking just out of sight.
Okay, you've officially sold me on this one. Now how about History? Obsessed. The idea of getting a second chance at love always gets me, but this one has a twist. The main character gets to go back and maybe fix his past relationship. What do you think happens? Does he make different choices this time around?
That's the question, isn't it? It makes you think about those what ifs in your own life, the choices we make, the paths we take. And it explores this idea of obsession, how those feelings can be both good and dangerous. Can we ever truly escape our past? Or are we destined to repeat our mistakes, even with the best intentions?
Man, that's deep. And speaking of deep, let's talk about the effect. This one feels like it plays with our expectations a bit. It's set in a school, which you might think would mean a more lighthearted story, but there are these hints of something darker going on beneath the surface. Yeah, like you think you're getting one thing, but then the story takes you somewhere completely different.
Exactly. And the effect is great at building that kind of atmosphere. You've got these two students, they connect on this really intense level, but then there are these weird things happening around them, these little hints that something's not quite right.
Okay, see, now I have to watch it. Makes you question everything, right?
Oh, yeah. You're constantly trying to figure out what's real, what's not. Yeah. Keeps you guessing the whole time.
I love that. Now, while we're talking recommendations, I got to give a shout out to the History Anthology series. Every time they come out with a new installment, it's like guaranteed to be good.
Yeah.
They've really mastered that dark BL vibe, haven't they?
100%. Each one is unique, but they all have that same commitment to really exploring those complex relationships, those messy situations, and they're not afraid to go there.
Exactly. And let's not forget about He, She, It, that Thai BL. So short, but it really gets under your skin.
Oh, tell me about it. It just goes to show you don't need a ton of time to tell a powerful story.
Right. Sometimes less is more, especially when it comes to these darker themes. So, as much as I'd love to keep dissecting these dramas all night, we should probably start wrapping things up. What are some final thoughts you want to leave our listener with? Any parting words of wisdom?
I think the biggest thing to remember is that dark is subjective, right? What one person finds intense, another person might find totally normal. The beauty of this genre is that there's something for everyone. Whether you're into those psychological thrillers like Playboy, or you prefer those quieter, more character-driven stories like My Beautiful Man.
It's all about finding what speaks to you.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to branch out, try stuff from different countries.
Exactly. That's where you find some of the best stuff.
For sure. This has been such a trip, from haunted cabins to the dark side of showbiz. And I think what gets me is these dramas, as intense as they can be, they really make you think.
That's what good storytelling does, right? It makes you confront difficult stuff, maybe even see things differently, and it sticks with you even after the credits roll.
Totally. And who knows, maybe by exploring those darker themes in fiction, it helps us understand ourselves a little better, embrace those complexities.
Maybe that's the whole point, right? We need a little darkness to appreciate the light.
Well said. I think that's the perfect note to end on. This is just the beginning of your dark BL drama journey. We've given you a taste, now go explore. And hey, maybe keep the lights on while you're watching, just in case. Some of those scenes can be intense. Until next time, happy watching.
See you next time.